Now before we get started, I know what you're probably thinking. Kajiti, didn't you make this video yesterday? Well, as it turns out, there's actually two confession subreddits, and they each seem to have their own distinct theme. It seems like r/confessions with an S is focused on more wacky or satirical stories, while the subject of today's video, r/confession with no S, is focused on more serious, hard-hitting stories. And just looking at some of the names for the posts that I'm going to be reading off today, I can already tell this is going to be a pretty wild ride. So let's all enjoy my amazing Half-Life 2 gameplay in the background here, and let's get into these crazy stories. Number 1. I vandalized the street in front of a kid's house to insult him, and he passed away from leukemia the same week. This is still my biggest demon that haunts me 25 years later. When I was 9, I lived on the same street as another kid my age who had cancer. We used to hang out a lot, and at that age, I really didn't understand cancer yet. I just knew he was sick. Obviously, his family was super nice and accommodating to him, and got basically anything he asked for, so he always had the best toys and video games and stuff, and I was jealous of that. One time, I really wanted a skateboard he had, but never used, and I was trying to get him to trade it to me or something, but he wouldn't, and I was super frustrated because I didn't understand why he wouldn't trade it to me, or exactly why he was so spoiled. He started missing school, so he wasn't getting off with me on the bus. One day, I was walking home by myself, and when I got to his house, I took some whiteout I had in my backpack and wrote "David sucks" on the street in front of his house. A couple days later, the school made an announcement that he passed away. I don't know if you guys ever had dried whiteout on your street, but it turns out it's pretty damn permanent. I'm not sure exactly how long it stayed there because I was 9, but it was definitely at least a few weeks. To this day, like once a month, I get a chill up my spine thinking back to that moment and what it must have been like for the family to read that every day after he had just died. I never even had the balls to apologize to his family. I moved out of my house as soon as I graduated high school, and I almost never come back. So we started off with a pretty grim story, and it's easy for an outsider to say that that shouldn't weigh on him as much as it did, because he was just a kid at the time, and there was no way he could have fully understood the implications of having cancer. And there's also no way he could have known that that kid would pass away that exact same week that he decided to write that on their driveway. But you have to really step into his shoes and look at it from his perspective. I think anybody who did that themselves would probably end up regretting it for the rest of their life, just like he does. What do you guys think? If you did something like this, would you be able to forgive yourself? I'm not quite sure I'd be able to myself, but thankfully I've never been put in that position, and hopefully I never will be. On to number 2. I took about $2,000 from a drug dealer that overdosed. I was the first on scene as a first responder. So I'm a firefighter, and about 2 years ago we got a call to a house for an ambulance assist, but we got there first. We walked in, and there were 2 guys on the sofa passed out. We copped very fast it was a overdose, so we needed Narcan to reverse the effects of the heroin. My colleague went out to the truck to get some, and me and another guy stayed. I noticed a wallet on the table full of money. As soon as I had the chance, I put it in my trousers pocket before anybody saw it. There was $2,000 in it. I feel kinda bad, but we saved their life. Now these are the types of shady stories I was expecting to find on r/confession. Taking $2,000 from a possibly dead man's wallet is pretty wild, but at the same time, you gotta think about the heroin that he was selling. How many people do you think bought that from him that ended up in the same position that he was, except in their case, help didn't come in time? It really creates this moral dilemma of, am I stealing from a man who's overdosing, or am I stealing from a drug dealer who's potentially killed people before with his products? I still think it's a pretty shady thing to do, but it really all just depends on how you look at it. What do you guys think? Confession number 3. My friend's death changed me and made me a better person. A little over a year ago, my friend threw away his life, without warning, without signs, without goodbye, without explanation. It just happened. On a random Monday morning. We were just two 20-year-old boys. I knew he was going through a hard time. I listened to him several times. I understood him. I tried to help as best as I could, but I never imagined what was inside him. He loved life, or so it seemed, much more than I did, or so I thought. He was a good friend, even without him knowing how much, and it hurts me that despite everything, he never really knew me as I knew him. He never knew about my ghosts as I knew about his, although they were different, and now it's too late. Now I've learned to live with the remorse. The anger is past. Over time, I've turned this story into one about me, and it's consuming me with guilt. Since this happened, my life has completely changed. Something in me changed forever. I finally decided to face my ghosts head on and walk with them. I decided to tell my partner about my past. I told him the truth about being abused as a child and a teenager and how it affects me today and the person I am. Something I never told my friend. Maybe if he knew I was as damaged as he was, he would have thought better of it or wouldn't feel so alone. I became a different person. I believe for the better. Someone who trusts more in loving kindness. Maybe that was the person he needed back then. I feel like my friend's death made me a better person, and I feel like shit for thinking this way and for making this about me. I think about him every day. It's easy to blame yourself for things that happen to your loved ones or your friends, but you have to understand that 99% of the time, it's really not your fault. And that's why you need to talk to your friends about these kinds of things. So if something ever does happen to them, you're not really consumed by the what if I did this or what if I did that different type mentality. These kinds of thoughts still may invade your mind, but they probably won't be as strong as long as you know that you did everything you could to help. Always talk to your friends and loved ones if you're going through a rough time, because they might just be going through the same exact thing as you. And with that said, let's move on to the next story. Confession 4. One conversation with my mom changed the way I see parents forever. A few months ago, my mom sat me down and told me she needed to talk to me about something important. I genuinely thought she was going to tell me she was dying. She looked terrified, kept fidgeting with her hands, and couldn't even look me into the eyes properly. I remember my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear what she was saying. Then she finally admitted that we were behind on bills, and she didn't know how much longer she could keep pretending everything was okay financially. What destroyed me wasn't even the money part. It was realizing that while I'd been stressing about my own life, my mom had apparently been carrying the weight of the entire family by herself and smiling through it every single day so we wouldn't worry. Ever since that conversation, I noticed exhaustion in parents everywhere. The fake smiles, the pretending, the I'm fine when they clearly aren't. I think becoming an adult is realizing your parents were just scared people trying their best the whole time. I think this story was an important one to share, because to me personally, the most important thing you can do in life is be a parent. You're not just raising your child, you're raising the next generation. You're actively molding and shaping the future as you raise your child. And that's why it's important to raise them right. You want them to go and create the future that you wanted to see when you were a kid. I don't think parents really get enough credit in this day and age. I see a lot of people get looked down upon whenever they have their first kid. I'll see people saying, oh, your life is over, whatever dream you had is over, and in some cases, that might be true. But the difference between those people and the ones with kids is the ones with kids are playing an active role in creating the future. And I'll end off this segment by saying be respectful to your parents. You might have a lot on your plate, but your parents do too. Moving on to story number 5. I lost $500,000 gambling on Baccarat in about 10 minutes. Here's the gist. I started playing with $1,000 in December of last year online. I was watching a gambling influencer on YouTube and learned to play blackjack and Baccarat. I started winning a lot of money. First it was about $20,000 from blackjack. That made me want to play for more since the bet limit on blackjack was $5,000. So I switched to Baccarat and ended up with about $500,000. I then decided I want $1 million, so I started playing in the high roller rooms, playing Baccarat for $50,000 a hand. I lost 10 times in a row. Now I don't really have much to say about this one, except just don't gamble. Me and some buddies went to Oklahoma for a wedding a couple of years ago, and we ended up going to the casino there. I pulled out $200 from the ATM, and I lost about 80, and then I just gave up and left. So moral of the story, don't gamble, the house always wins. Moving along to story number 6. This started as a curiosity and ended very badly. I should never have done it. About 8 months ago, I found a USB stick lying in a coffee shop. I thought I would have homework or normal things, but when I plugged it into my laptop, I saw folders of personal videos, private photos, and documents from someone who clearly never thought anyone else would see that. My idea was to try to find the owner and return it, but I ended up seeing everything, hours and hours. There were family videos, recorded fights, crying voice notes, even a folder where that person talked about wanting to disappear and start another life from scratch. I can't explain why I became so obsessed. I felt like I was seeing the real version of someone without filters, as if I were reading the most intimate diary in the world. I got to the point of taking the USB to work and looking at it during my breaks. The worst came later. I found the owner's profile through some documents and discovered that he apparently died a few months ago in an accident. Since then, I haven't been able to delete anything. Sometimes I open the videos only to hear the voice of the person who literally no longer exists. I know this sounds sick, but I feel this weird connection with someone I've never met, and it makes me feel guilty thinking I'm probably the only person watching all of this right now. Now this one's a little weird to me. I think the poster has a very odd obsession with this USB stick and the contents of it. And I think since they figured out who it belongs to, they should probably give it to a family member of that person or a friend. But again, those are just my thoughts on the matter, so let's get into the next one. I pretended to be my sister and destroyed her life. When I was 19, I did something so petty and gross to my sister that I have never told anyone, and every time I see her now, I feel physically sick. We were living with our mom in a tiny apartment, and my sister was the one who always seemed to have her life together. Stable job, long-term boyfriend, always looked put together. I was the mess, late to everything, dropping classes, constantly being compared to her. Then her boyfriend cheated on her. She came home crying, and I acted supportive. But honestly, part of me felt this ugly sense of relief that something in her life had finally gone bad too. A couple days later, while she was in the shower, I took her phone and texted him pretending to be her. I said she was going to expose him to everyone. I made it way harsher than she probably ever would have wanted, because I wanted him scared. It escalated fast. He started blowing up her phone, then came to our apartment yelling. My sister kept saying she didn't send it, but nobody really believed her because it came from her phone. I said nothing. Then he posted screenshots online. People from her work saw them, and within a week, she lost her job over it. She moved out soon after and never really came back emotionally. Now I only see her on holidays, and she's polite but distant. She still doesn't know it was me. I keep telling myself I was young and bitter, which was true, but I still did it on purpose. I was jealous, and I helped ruin her life over one nasty text. Now I know it can be hard to be compared to your siblings and other people in general, but what the poster did in this situation was just completely uncalled for. Her sister ended up losing her job and got her reputation ruined all over the poster's jealousy. I would have said this is not a way to resolve a family dispute, but this just seems like one-sided hate coming from the poster directed towards their sister. And the sister almost definitely knows it was the poster who sent those texts. She's just not spiteful enough to use it against her like the poster is. But anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for today's round of stories from r/confession. I'm still trying to find a sweet spot for my audio, so let me know if you have any tips, and if you have any suggestions, also add those into your comments as well. But as always, if you like the video, subscribe, send it to your buddies, or don't. Later.